Hey everybody, I'm Jimmy Leslie, resident artist and director of education in North America. And it's always fun to me when the LIQUITEX team comes along and says, hey Jimmy, we've got a new product for you to try. And that's what we're looking at today. We've got the new LIQUITEX markers. These are water-based acrylic markers with high quality artist pigments. We've got 58 colors, very vibrant with 10 sets. We've also got 3 nibs. We've got a bullet point nib, and then we've got an 8mm and a 15mm that are dual-sided for a variety of marks. These nibs are highly durable. That's been something that's come across in testing, and they're also highly opaque markers. I really love that when we get into layering. So let's take a closer look now. I've got the 2mm red marker in my hand. It's got our bullet nib here, and you can tell it's not been used because it's got a white nib. So what you're gonna wanna do is have the cap on there. Just shake that a few times. We want to prime it. We want to get the pigments moving around in there. And then we'll take that off and just do a few depressions here. Let's see how many it takes. That's 3. Yeah, I'm getting about 6 or 7 in here. And we can start to see it's coming down into the nib right here. And just a few more. Yeah, now it's really starting to flow. Once it does that, maybe one more, and yep, we're gonna have a mark now. And the nice thing is, once you have this going, that just flows so beautifully. So, you know, this is much different than a paintbrush that I might load up with paint and then I have to go back to the palette and pick up more color. This is just gonna keep on going and going and going. And then I put a piece of black swatch there earlier. And if I just pull the red right over top of that, look how beautiful and opaque that is. It's really covering that black. So we're getting that same bold color right there that we're getting when we lay the line down on the white paper. Let's close that up. You always want to kind of hear that snap happen right there. We know it's sealed well. We've got the 8mm nib right here. And again, you'd want to shake this first. I've already done that. This one we can see has already been used. And this has got our chisel nib on there. So it's got that angle. And we can make a mark like that, but we can also come on to the edge right here and we can get a thinner mark. And probably if I'm really light with my touch, yeah, I'm barely coming across the surface. Look at that. That's a really fine mark. So partially about how you hold it, how you use the nib, but also maybe the pressure that you use as well. Again, we want to hear that snap on there. And then we're going to take a look at the 15mm nib as well. Now, let's go back to the orange one for just a second, because if we look at that chisel nib again, I'm going to get a little bit dirty here. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to flip it. We've got the bullet nib there too. So it's kind of a nice little bonus. I think some people might forget about that. So you really want to call that out when you're talking to people about product, but we can flip that from the bullet to the chisel nib. So really nice added bonus right there. And then when we look at our broad 15mm nib here, that's going to be the same on either side. So a lot of use out of that. And then I can make my really big broad mark. I can come on the edge. If we look at that in profile, make a thinner mark, still a nice broad mark though. Let's go over here, just on the edge there. Look at how thin I can get there too. I think that's what's really remarkable. So if I were showing this to somebody in a store, if I were talking to an account, I really want to play up all those different angles and ways that you can hold this. And once again, we want to snap that on there nicely. Now I do want to show you this. This is important. We tested on a wide variety of surfaces. This is just an old piece of wood that I had lying around my studio. And over the course of many weeks, I took, let's see what we have here. We've got a green, orange, a lighter blue, a magenta, and a darker blue here. And I would just keep putting layers and layers and layers over with those same 4 or 5 different colors. I would use those same markers over and over again, let that dry and keep on layering, and these nibs held up beautifully. So that's going to be great for anybody who's using these, from fine artists down to all types of creatives who want to get into markers and have a lot of fun. Finally, when we want to store these, got my little container right here. We're going to want to store those upright. So nibs up, caps up. And that's going to be good because we want to make sure that the ink doesn't flow down into the nib and dry out there, especially again, if you didn't get that cap on nice and snug like that. That'll have them ready to go for your next creative efforts. Questions might come up about surface usage with the new LIQUITEX markers, and they work on a lot of different surfaces, from paper, as we've already seen, to wood, canvas, plexi, stone, and so on. So let's take a look here with our paper again, but this time with the white marker. And I want to show this because I want to mention opacity again on this black piece of paper. Just look how beautiful that shows up. And I keep mentioning opacity. This is such a big topic for me because in our professional range of markers, there was variable opacity based on the pigments. So some were more transparent, some were more opaque. And I think a lot of marker people who are into using markers like that opacity that we see in other competitors. So I think we've really hit the mark with this. Again, especially when you see that white show up on a black surface, it's really quite gorgeous. And I think people are going to be impressed with that. Let's take a look at some other surfaces as well. Again, harping on opacity here a little bit because I've got so many marks already down on this wooden surface that I've showed you. Just want to take the red marker again. And look at how beautiful that shows up. So I can draw all over these other colors. And I think that's really a hallmark of a good marker and what attracts people to markers. So really beautiful there. And then we've got some non-porous surfaces here before we get to canvas. I'll actually use the red marker again. We've got a piece of metal here. Really works well and really glides across that surface. Now, when you have something like metal or maybe over here, look at how that shows up on plexi. It's really actually quite satisfying of how that kind of flows on that really smooth surface. But when you have non-porous surfaces like that, I would recommend something like a fixative over that, because when you have a porous surface, the marker or any type of paint really wants to sink in and grab onto fibers of things like paper and canvas, but they don't have that to grab onto with something that's non-porous, so you could scratch something off. So again, the fixative would be useful on something like non-porous surfaces. When we think of canvas, I think a lot of times we think of like a fine art canvas, but here we've got a tote bag. So again, great for crafts as well. We think of these markers as being something that is great for all sorts of creative people. And I think that's a little bit different than our professional range of markers as well. They were really developed to match a lot of the colors in other Liquitex paint ranges, where these sort of stand out on their own as their own marker range. Again, a little bit of point of difference as well. We've got 58 colors in our new marker range as opposed to 50 in the professional range. And we've also got metallic colors in there as well. I think that's really going to hit home for a lot of creative people. And again, people in the craft and hobby segment are really going to be attracted to the metallic markers too. Let's recap some important features. We've got our water-based acrylic marker, high-quality artist pigments. We've got 3 nib sizes, 2mm bullet. Then we've got the 8mm, which is a bullet, but you can flip around to the chisel. And then we've got the broad 15mm marker. Again, you can flip that broad nib over and use the other side. Highly durable nibs. We've done a lot of testing around that. That's really important. The opacity of these markers is excellent compared to when we look at our professional range with variable opacity there. I think people are going to really appreciate the opacity of these, and so you really want to showcase that when speaking to this product. And then there's a multitude of surfaces that they can be used on. So any further questions, please reach out to me, reach out to the Liquitex team, and we'll help you out.